The LA Kings have been pushed to the brink of elimination. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of Locked On NHL Game Night. It's a nightly podcast and YouTube show wrapping up the night in the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Well, the LA Kings played Game 5 of the Stanley Cup playoffs back home in LA after a frustrating, difficult loss in Edmonton in Game 4, 4-3 in overtime, Kings blowing a 3-1 third period lead. How would the Kings respond back on home ice where they've been the best team in the NHL all season? Unfortunately, not well, as the Kings struggled from start to finish, resulting in a very disappointing 3-1 defeat. The Kings now trail in the series 3-2 with a potential elimination game coming up on Thursday north of the border. I've said before in this series, before the series started, during the series, that I believe the LA Kings were the better team. I believe the Kings were the deeper team, the healthier team. They had the goaltending and, most importantly, home ice advantage. And that eventually would show itself in the result of this series. Even in the difficult games 3 and 4 losses, you could argue, despite the final score, the Kings were better in a lot of ways. Not in this one, not even close. The Kings were not the better team in Game 5. And for that to be the case on home ice is pretty devastating. And that's my big takeaway from this game. This wasn't quite as traumatizing as the Game 4 loss, being 29 seconds away from a huge win and a 3-1 series lead. But it was just as demoralizing, and maybe even more so, because it was on home ice. The Kings didn't come close to playing well enough to win. And in a game that you could argue was about as close to being a must-win as you could be without it being a true elimination game, they wilted. The offense was not there. But I didn't think it was because, they didn't play conservative as we saw in games 3 and 4 in the third period. I thought the energy was there. I thought the desire was there, but the execution was not even close. The Kings looked out of sync all game, mostly offensively, but defensively too. They failed to score a 5-on-5 goal, which coming into the series, I thought was going to be one of the big advantages for LA. I thought that they were clearly the better 5-on-5 team. Kings didn't connect on passes. There were times where they just lost the puck, missed the net on shots way too much. Shots on goal were a huge problem. LA had 4 shots on goal in the first period, 8 in the second, and 9 in the third. And that was when they pulled the goalie late and got a few shots on goal. That clearly is not enough shots on goal to make life difficult for the opponent. The Kings didn't have much sustained time in the Oilers' end. Meanwhile, the Oilers looked for blue-collar goals, right, that we've talked about a lot with the Kings this season. Edmonton threw pucks on net. They attacked the net. Now, it didn't necessarily result directly in goals being scored, but it kept the Kings on their heels. It kept the Oilers in an aggressive mindset that LA needed to have. Kings didn't do nearly as much of that as the Oilers did. And when you're having trouble generating offense, right, go back to basics. Get pucks on net, get bodies to the net. The Kings really didn't do it all night. So that leaves us with the obvious big question. Why? Why did the Kings not really show up in this crucial game where they've been so good all year long at home when they really needed it. Why did they not perform in game number 5? Well, as much as we probably hate to do it, I guess we do have to give some credit to the Oilers. Now, when I watch a Kings game, whether I'm at home or in the press box, I'm focusing probably 80% on the Kings. Obviously, you see other things going on with the other team, but I'm really focusing on who's on the ice for the Kings, where are they, that kind of stuff. I'm not necessarily picking up everything that's going on with the other team. But I did hear the Oilers radio broadcaster say something after the game that really surprised me. I was hanging around in the press box. I didn't go down for the interviews. I record a little post-game wrap-up segment for our Locked On NHL Game Night show. And so I was doing that, and they were wrapping up their show, the Oilers radio guys. They're right there, probably 15 feet away from me. And they were doing their post-game show, and they wrapped that up, and they were getting up and they were getting ready to leave, and they started kind of just talking amongst themselves. And I heard them say to each other, that was the best the Oilers have played all year. And I was very surprised by that. Not that they didn't obviously play a very good game, they did, but the best game all year? Now, maybe they meant under the circumstances with what was at stake and the way the Kings had played so well at home. But did I think the Oilers played well? Yeah. But did I think that was their best game of the year? No. So, I'll take them at their word, but I will say this. Also, watching this game, I don't know that I would say that was the Kings' worst game of the year, but under the circumstances, you could make the case it was. And maybe that's what they meant. So, yeah, give the Oilers their credit. But I think also making this disappointing for the Kings, and maybe this is also part of what they were talking about. The Oilers won this game without their two superstars doing a whole lot. Now, obviously, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl always are a threat, and they always keep you on your heels or your toes a little bit, whichever one to use. You have to pay attention to them constantly. But they combined for 2 points, and it was the assists on the Oilers' empty net goal, which makes this even worse, that the Kings were beaten by the Oilers' other guys. Which brings us back to the question, why? Why did the Kings not perform close to where they needed to perform in Game 5? Are they physically worn out? In this series, we've talked about head coach Jim Hiller pretty much playing only 9 forwards and 5 defensemen. Personally, I don't buy that. I know the players afterwards weren't buying into that, and I know they're not going to say, yes, we're worn out. We don't have any energy left. They're not going to say that, obviously, but I just don't buy it. In the overtime of Game 4, I think you could point to fatigue in that one, but we're in Game 5 of the playoffs. This is not, Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals or something. It's only Game 5, and I know these are high intensity games, but I just don't buy it. I really don't. The first period, the Kings had 4 shots on goal. Were they already tired in the first period? I don't know. I have a hard time believing that even with the lineup that's being put out there, that the reason for that performance in Game 5 was that we just physically were tired or didn't have energy. I don't buy that. Now, is the team mentally beaten down or broken because of what happens in Game 3 and 4? Maybe. I can buy that a little bit more, to be honest with you. And I'll also be honest with you that I don't know when you're watching or listening to this show. I usually, after a Kings game, will record the show a few hours after the show. And I want to have it out there for you guys when you're like driving to work or in your morning when you're getting ready for work or something like that. And I don't want to sound overly dramatic here, but I got home from the game last night and I was putting my thoughts together and I just said to myself, I got to take a break. I need to get some sleep and then I'll get up in the morning and do the show. I'm mentally fatigued by what's been happening in the last couple of games. So hopefully you understand that. But after what we've seen over the last 3 games, After a 2-0 series lead, game 3 flips in a span of 10 seconds, controversial goal, controversial coach's challenge, and then an immediate power play goal. And then the next game, the Kings come back, play 2 great periods, and then implode in the third. And those were 2 big losses. But honestly, while those 2 games, in particular game 4, were without question missed opportunities, that's no excuse for what happened in game 5. I mean, bottom line is going into game 5, the series is tied at 2-2. It's a best of 3. And I know the Kings just lost 2 in a row, but I mean, you're back on home ice. You get 2 of the next 3 at home if you are able to get it to a 7 game. And you've been historically great at home. You just need to win both your home games. And that's what happens in game 5. You get outplayed in a game that you really needed to have. I mean, there's really no excuse for it. I mean, we always want to look for one thing. Maybe it's a combination of things. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If the Kings play like they're capable of playing and they come up short, I can accept that as a sports fan. But the third periods in games 4 and 5, pretty much the entire game, the third periods of games 3 and 4, pretty much the entire game of game 5, it felt like the Kings were the problem and not the Oilers. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not giving the Oilers the credit they deserve, but that's what it felt like to me. As for what did the Kings head coach think of game number 5, Jim Hiller's quote was this, quote, "They executed way better than us tonight. That was the first one. They were stronger. They beat us in every area of the game except for special teams, oddly enough. The goalkeeper was great for us to give us a chance. They were just way better in every way. We can't look to one part of our game. I think that was acceptable or that was good enough," end quote. So he has no answers. He doesn't understand it. And he said the Kings weren't good enough in pretty much every area. And he is correct. The game stats in this one, Kings lose 3-1. Shots on goal, 46-22 in favor of Edmonton. I mean, just from a odds standpoint, I mean, you're going to score a lot more goals when you've got that many shots on goal as opposed to what the other team has. Just the odds are in your favor, right? Power play, Edmonton 0 for 2. Kings were 1 for 3. Face-offs favored LA 32-22. Hits favored the Kings 59-46. Block shots favored LA 15-13, which shows you how important some of those stats are, I guess. All right, up next, we'll get into some of the individuals on the ice, some of the lineup changes, and more for game number 5. That's next. You're on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NBA playoffs are going on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes betting so easy. Whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win. LA has 2 teams still alive in the NBA playoffs. Lakers are down 3-1 to the Timberwolves, facing a must-win in Game 5 coming up tonight. At last check, the Lakers were 5.5-point underdogs for the game at Crypto.com Arena. Clippers are now down 3-2 to the Nuggets after a Game 5 loss on Tuesday. Clippers face a must-win on their home court on Thursday. They're listed as 6.5-point underdogs in that game. Do you think LA's NBA teams will stay alive? Well, you can place a wager on it with FanDuel. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, let's look back more into game number 5. Let's start with the lineups for the 2 teams. The Kings stuck with the 12-6 setup, 12 forwards and 6 defensemen. Alex Turcotte back in the lineup for the Kings, skating on the 4th line with Samuel Hellenius and Jeff Malott. Trevor Lewis out of the lineup. The Kings also reinserted Jordan Spence into the lineup on the blue line. He was in. Jacob Moverara back out. Vladislav Gavrikov was moved from the right side back to the left side with Brant Clark on the second pairing. As for the Oilers, really for them, lots of combinations again. They mixed things up a lot, but they did not play Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl together to start, but they did have them together several times throughout the game, kind of situationally, which I think is a word. But as I said, they really weren't that big of a factor in the game 5. In net, it was Calvin Pickard again for the Oilers. Third straight start for him. They're winning with him in net, so why would you change it? He really wasn't that busy. Certainly not as busy as he needed to be. He ended up allowing 1 goal on 22 shots. And honestly, I don't know if he had to make more than 2 quality saves the entire game. Rest of the shots he saw, I would say, were relatively routine. He never had to really battle to look through bodies to see pucks other than maybe on the Kings power play. He was never really uncomfortable, and the Kings didn't really make it hard on him. The same could not be said for Kings goalie Darcy Kuemper, who once again played brilliantly. The Kings as a team didn't execute at a high level, but their goalie sure did. He made a lot of high-quality saves and took a ton of shots, 45, as I mentioned earlier, turned aside 43 of them, highlighted by a glove save that robbed Evan Bouchard of a goal. But Darcy Kuemper made several grade A saves from the start, just like he did in Game 4. Darcy Kuemper, again, deserved a better fate. I thought he was great, but he can only do so much. And I will say Darcy did have a few moments where he kind of fought the puck, where he was looking to find rebounds and trying to cover it up in the crease. There were some scrambles there occasionally, but all in all, a great game for Darcy Kuemper. Andrei Kuzmenko scored the Kings' only goal of the game, a deflection in front of the net on the power play. Andrei Kopitar won the faceoff in the Oilers zone. Kuzmenko tracked it down and got the power play set up immediately. Eventually, it was Kopitar with the shot on net and Kuzmenko with the deflection. And he once again has shown, despite his size, he seems to be very comfortable and effective going to the front of the net and making good things happen. He certainly did on that one. It was his 3rd goal of the playoffs. They've all come on the power play. And other than a 2-on-1 he had with Adrian Kempe early on, where he made some amazing stick handling moves and almost got it over to Kempe for a wide open net, it just didn't connect, which is a lot of what the Kings had in Game 5, not connecting on a lot of things. But I thought, other than obviously the power play goal and that one play early on with Kempe, Kuzmenko, I thought relatively quiet the rest of the game. Alex Turcotte mentioned back in the lineup after missing 3 games for unknown reasons. He played in the series opener and then didn't play again until Game 5. Was it a coach's decision? Was it an injury? We don't know. I would say, for what it's worth, if it was a coach's decision, it was the wrong decision. That said, Turcotte played 10 shifts in Game 5 for 5 minutes and 8 seconds of time on ice. He did draw a tripping penalty in the second period, which led to the Kings' only goal on the power play. I thought the Danault line, Philip Danault, Trevor Moore, Warren Foegele, was the Kings' best line in Game 5. Lots of energy. Foegele had 6 shots on goal. Moore had 4. Danault had 6 hits. He won 12 of 17 faceoffs. I thought those guys, if you're going to look at one line that did their job, I thought those guys did their job. Same cannot be said for the other 3 lines, in particular the Kopitar and the Byfield lines. The Kings' 2 most dynamic offensive players, I think we can all agree on, Kevin Fiala and Adrian Kempe, were not dangerous in this one. Fiala just didn't have it. And I thought he definitely did have it, quote unquote, for most of the series. I thought he was really good in games 3 and 4. He just kind of was, the moves he was making, keeping the Oilers on their heels. But in this game, he just didn't have it. He lost the puck, stick handling, just lost it several times. And he just was not effective at all. He had 25 shifts in the game, played 21 minutes, had 3 shots on goal. I don't remember any of them being quality scoring chances. As for Adrian Kempe, he had that early 2-on-1 with Kuzmenko, didn't connect. Probably the only real noteworthy thing that Kempe did was late in the game with the Kings looking for more offense. Jim Hiller put him out as a defenseman. That had worked in the past. He did a good job holding it in, got some shots towards the net. He did fine on that, but overall, he just wasn't really that dangerous. 28 shifts for him, 20 minutes and 24 seconds. He had 2 shots. He was a -2. Quentin Byfield, pretty quiet, other than a play that I would have to say the Kings actually got away with. Second period, there was a mad scramble in the crease for a loose puck. and Byfield covered the puck in the crease. Now, maybe the whistle blew before he did that. I don't know. Again, I'm watching it live. I didn't have the benefit of seeing the replay or hearing, what the announcers said, but he didn't get called for it. And when you're a skater and you cover the puck in the crease, that's a penalty shot. So the Kings did get away with that one, I thought. As for Q, 28 shifts, 20 minutes, 25 seconds, 2 shots on goal. He was also a -2. Just not enough from Fiala and Kempe and Byfield. Those guys are dangerous, talented players, and it didn't really look like they were in Game 5. I did want to point out Kings defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov. I thought he and Joel Edmondson were the Kings' best defensemen. I thought they really battled. In particular, I enjoyed Gavrikov going at it with Evander Kane. Definitely took him on in a lot of physical battles, never backed down. I enjoyed seeing that. We talked about the minutes played in the series and how much that might factor into the Kings being fatigued. It seemed Jim Hiller made a bit more of a conscious decision to play the fourth line, at least a little bit more. Sammy Helenius played a team low 4 minutes and 5 seconds. I don't think he had a shift in the third period. I do remember seeing Alex Turcotte and Jeff Malott out with Philip Deneau at least once in the third period. Turcotte played 5 minutes and 8 seconds, Malott 5 minutes and 18 seconds. That was still about 3 more minutes than they played in the previous game for all those guys. So again, a little bit more of an effort, it seemed like, to get the fourth line out there. Also on defense, Jacob Moverara, the sixth defenseman, played only 2 minutes and 26 seconds in Game 4. Jordan Spence, who was the sixth defenseman in Game 5, played 8 minutes and 17 seconds. So certainly, again, some more minutes for some of the other players for the Kings, but it didn't seem to matter in this one. Just checking some of the team leaders individually in the loss. Andrei Kuzmenko, the lone goal, with Andrei Kopitar and Adrian Kempe with assists on the power play. Warren Fogle led the Kings with 6 shots on goal. Mikey Anderson led the Kings with 8 hits. Vladislav Gavrikov led the team with 3 block shots. Drew Doughty led the Kings in time on ice, 26 minutes and 6 seconds. And Drew was battling. I appreciate him, and I know looking at the defenseman on the right side, he's the obvious guy to play the most minutes, but I just think he's played too many minutes since he's come back, frankly. Philip Deneau led the Kings in the faceoff circle, won 17 of 24 faceoffs, 70.8%. All right, we do have a Game 6 coming up. The season actually is not over. We will talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. There is nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute NHL showdown or soaking up the excitement of an NBA matchup, but finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. Gametime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer, and with their all-in pricing, you can see the total cost up front, no surprises at checkout. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events. And with the seat view before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guaranteed, you can book with total confidence. The lowest price guarantee means I never worry about overpaying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So I'm not going to do an autopsy on the patient while it's still breathing. There will be plenty of time for that when the season does come to an end. For now, the Kings are still alive as they head back to Edmonton for Game 6. I'm pretty sure a lot of people, plenty of Kings fans, are kicking dirt on the Kings already, and I get that. I really do. But the Kings still have a shot at redemption. I wore a t-shirt on Tuesday that said "Believe" with a Kings logo on it. I posted it on social media, and somebody afterwards, after Game 5, reposted my picture and said, "I don't." To that person, I don't blame you one bit. But as they said in Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying there's a chance. And there was a very old baseball player who once famously said, "It's not over till it's over." Can the Kings force a Game 7 back in LA? Well, they can, but will they? Is it likely? Do I feel confident they will? Would I pay my hard-earned money to place a bet on the Kings to do that? I would not. I don't feel confident. And why would I? What reason have the Kings given me, us, to feel confident that they can get it done? I will admit, I was confident that they would win Game 5 on home ice. I really was. There was a fellow radio guy up in the press box who I walked past before the game started, Game 5, and he said, Game 6, or, sorry, he said, Game 7. And I said, no, but I know what you mean. It did feel like a must win. And look, the Oilers smell blood in the water. That building's going to go crazy. It's going to be very, very difficult in Game 6 for the Kings. There's no question. And the Oilers have been here before. Yes, specifically against the Kings, but look, they went to the Stanley Cup final last year. They know when you have a team down, you finish them. And they do not want to come back to LA for a Game 7. So it's going to be a huge challenge for the Kings, but there is still a chance. Obviously, it falls to every individual player, and it falls to a rookie head coach. And that's something we really haven't touched on. Jim Miller is an NHL rookie head coach. Now, he's been a longtime assistant. He's been in the playoffs before, but he's never been the guy in charge. And I think we saw a bit of his inexperience, right? So far in this series, we saw his reaction in the press conference after Game 4. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but it is a fact. He's never been in this position before. So is Jim Hiller the guy to kind of rally the troops and get him a win in Game 6 and force a Game 7? I don't know. Like I said, with everything, don't feel real confident right now in any aspect of what's going on with the Kings. And Jim Hiller is definitely in the crosshairs right now, for sure. So we'll see. Look, I think the great majority of Kings fans, including this one, are kind of at this point in the I'll believe it when I see it mindset when it comes to the Kings right now. And I don't think you can blame us for that. As for the chances that, the Kings make lineup changes in Game 6, after that Game 5 performance, I would say all bets are off. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jim Miller do anything at this point, and maybe he should pull out all the stops. I don't know what they would be, frankly, at this point, but I would say not a lot to lose right now, the way it feels. And, I think if we're honest at this point, what do we really want to see in Game 6? We want to see the Kings say, F it, go for it. Like, take chances, play to win, show a sense of urgency, desperation. As my old football coach used to say, play like your hair's on fire. I don't know what that means. I do know what it means, but it is still a funny saying. He had a lot of weird things he said, but right, go down swinging, make the Oilers earn it, play your asses off for 3 periods, and whatever happens, happens. I think that's what we're at least looking to see in Game 6. And if we look at the games in Edmonton, frankly, I think you could say 4 of the 6 periods, the Kings have been the better team. So it's not like they've gone up to Edmonton and gotten dominated. So, the Kings, look, they're going to have to be, I think, better on special teams in Game 6. Now, they've been okay on the power play throughout. Actually, better than okay. They've been great on the power play throughout. But the penalty kill at home has been perfect, 7 for 7. And on the road, they've allowed 4 power play goals in 5 shorthanded opportunities. So the penalty kill has to be a lot better. The power play still has to give them something. Like I said, I will say one thing that I hope that I do feel confident on, and I hope will still be a factor in Game 6, Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper has been there every game. I expect him to be there again for Game 6 to at least give the Kings a fighting chance. So we shall see. Certainly the Kings' dynamic players that we talked about, Adrian Kempe, Kevin Fiala, Quentin Byfield, got to have more from those guys. So obviously our confidence in the team right now is probably pretty shaken, but their backs are truly against the wall. It is win or go home. Desperation time. Maybe that equates to a very motivated Kings team. I hope so. We will see. I want to give a quick shout out to Ed and Brea. Also, Benson, I met up with after the game. We had a little chat. We shared our grief with each other after game 5. And I also want to give a shout out to my old college roommate, Gary Petrosian, was at the game. Gary and I went to Fresno State together many years ago, lived together for many years, have stayed friends. He was a Kings fan before I was, and he is a big reason why I got into hockey, and he's a big reason why I became a Kings fan. So, Gary, even in these dark times, I thank you for helping me become a Kings fan. It was great seeing him at the game. For you everydayers, those of you that listen to watch Locked On the Kings every day, coming up on our next show, we're obviously going to talk about game number 6 more. Maybe we'll have a special guest to help us talk about what we've seen so far, what we might see going forward. We shall see. We'll all find out together. At this point, I'm not exactly sure, but we will have a Kings fan feedback show coming up, and I know that you guys have a lot to say about a lot of different things, so looking forward to that. If you want to send an email for that show or for any other reason, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE is where you can send the email. If you're watching this show on YouTube and want to make a comment, we'd appreciate that. It helps out the algorithm, I'm told. But love for you to get your comments there as well. Stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.